to Get Real with Asil, a woman empowerment podcast hosted by Asil Al-Baba. Hello and welcome to another episode of Get Real with Asil. Today is Monday, June 4th, 2018. Today's episode is actually another special one because I have two amazing guests with me that I've interviewed. Selma and Scott are founders of Sniffr, which is a new app in the dating scene. It's an app specifically catered to dog lovers. There's so much information about this app that you can find in the show notes if you look below the episode, and you'll find exactly the links in which you can read more about it and hopefully join it as well. So Selma and Scott are the founders, and I also have their bios in the show notes as well. And they have so much to offer as far as their experience, but more so the inspiration that they instill upon you, hopefully, given the risks they're taking and just the creativity that comes with thinking outside the box and taking risks in various ways. So I hope you enjoy the interview ahead, and I look forward to hearing your feedback. Enjoy. So welcome to another episode of Get Real with Asil. I'm super excited to have two amazing entrepreneurs with me on this episode, Scott and Selma. Hello, guys.
Hi there. Thank you for having us.
Yes, hi.
Hi. So why don't we start by introducing yourself? So let's start with Selma because it's ladies first, Scott, right?
Of course.
So Selma, go ahead. Tell us about yourself.
Sure. Hi. My name is Salma, and I actually come from a technical background, and I'm a co-founder at Sniffr. I joined Scott a little later in the journey, but I worked with him on the project from the start. Do you need some more information? What else would you be looking for?
So currently, I know you're living in the U.S. You're living in L.A., right?
No, I'm actually living in San Francisco.
San Francisco,
specifically in Silicon Valley.
Love it.
I'm in Los Altos now.
Wow, amazing. So, Scott, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Scott Darling, co-founder of Sniffr, and to take it back to the beginning, we came up with an idea. We have there was another co-founder originally, now a silent partner, but then through referral, we were put on to Salma, and she came on as our developer, and over time grew into the co-founder that she is today. So has definitely been with us since the beginning, and part of the design, part of the ideas and everything that's been involved. So it's been quite a journey. Yeah.
Sure, and we just started talking about Sniffr while you guys are introducing yourself. So this is a great segue for you to tell us exactly what Sniffr is, so that the listeners can understand what is the project you guys are working on.
Yeah, absolutely. So Sniffr is essentially a dating app for dog owners. However, we don't limit it specifically to single people. We also set up, playdates and walks and things like that with dogs. So you can be in a relationship and use the app. The original idea for the app was kind of social networking, similar to the dog park. How do you take that interaction that you have with people at the dog park and move it past the gates, right? Most people forget the names of the other people there. They actually tend to remember the names of the dogs more, and it's generally a lot of small talk, right? So how do you develop that? And maybe it's a cold day, or you live in a condo building, or you just pass somebody on the street, right? All those little things that don't necessarily allow for a better conversation, better interaction, and we want to put it all on an app and have it evolve that way. And then what we did is, through conversations with people over time, as it was first kind of like just a social networking for dog owners, people really like the idea of the dating aspect, especially with all the hype around the other dating apps out there, Tinder, Bumble, things like that. So we went down the niche route on that as in our conversations and how we present it. But we've also added some other features, and I'll probably let Salma talk about that because she's been heavily involved in that.
Sure, Salma, you can start telling us a little bit about the features and then we can talk about the journey itself because I'm sure that whenever anybody wants to start something new in life, they're initially potentially starting from a place of self-doubt and then they start hearing feedback from the market, maybe like this is something so saturated. Why would you get into something like that? Like I'm interested in hearing the naysayers' feedback first and how you dealt with it, because clearly you started something anyway, regardless of everything you've heard, and I'm interested in that journey. But if you'd like, let's focus on the features first so we understand the service fully, and then we can get into the journey after that.
Sure. So one of the other features that we have already executed and it's live is the coupons. So most of the time, in order for you to get anything catered towards your pets, you're going to have to do some rigorous research online. So we wanted Sniffr to amalgamate not only just general, but we're looking more for like moms and pups. So small stores, grooming stores, daycares, etc. Any type of services catered towards your dogs would be on our coupons section in the app.
Okay.
We also have a cute little section, but we it's not going to be live yet. It's a little bit more about like sharing cute moments with your pet, whether it's a video, a photo. So again, as Scott mentioned, that it originated as a community, more not just catered towards like single people, but also married people. So there were other reasons for them to visit the app and actually depend on it.
Absolutely.
But yeah.
This is such a cool idea. Like, it's very cute just listening to it. Pets always have this, sweet spot in us, right?
Yeah. So to actually get back to that point, so when Scott and Justin first came to me, they had the idea and they weren't really certain about it. So we did some digging and some research, and the feedback that we got from everyone was literally, "Oh my God, that's genius."
Wow.
Because for guys, who's your wingman? Usually it's your pet, right? So that was the type of feedback we got. People loved it. For women, specifically single women, they felt that a man that had a dog was a little bit more serious. So the complaints we got is on Tinder, a platform like Tinder, people tend to mainly want a one-night stand or something. But if you're really looking for a relationship, if you have a pet, they're more committed, and it's something that you can get to know the person, whether it's if you're a couple just to make friends at the park or to connect or whatsoever. So it was really interesting, the feedback we got along the way, and Scott can actually add more to that.
Absolutely.
We've been featured in many platforms. But yeah, it was always very positive, interesting, excited type of feedback from people. They loved it, especially dog owners. They thought it was great because, it's a niche market. Connecting, like the whole idea about it is to connect at the park or connect to go to the park together. So it kind of also is, it breaks that ice in the beginning. You don't know really how to initiate. So, your wingman helps you out. Yeah. So
if I'm hearing this correctly, you're suggesting that the initial feedback and the initial reaction was more positive than it was negative, and therefore did that help you with the momentum and just the strategies in total?
Well, there's always going to be naysayers. I mean, there's going to be people that may not understand it, but to echo Salma's point, we've had so many people give such positive feedback that you get in those moments where things might be tough, things might not be moving as quickly as you'd like, but it's what keeps you going. It's what keeps you motivated. And we've had, again, tremendous amount of support from people we know, people we don't even know, being featured on different types of media. That's really kept us moving forward and sticking with it, solving problems and adapting, because in this business with these types of products, technology is changing rapidly. So you really always have to be staying on top of it, keeping up, and you never create a product and just let it sit there. It's always evolving. So to get the energy to keep moving forward with that, you need that positive reinforcement.
Absolutely. So, aside from the feedback you heard from others, I'm interested in your own inner voice. What was your inner voice saying in times where you're taking a risk like that? Because I don't know about you, Selma, but I know Scott is employed by a corporation. So, was there anything on your end between you and yourself? The conversation. What did the conversation look like?
In terms of the risk associated with this?
Yes, like the risk and also how the journey started. Because a lot of people, when they're employed, employment is looked at as something that's stable and secure. And when people want to start taking risks, there's a conversation that takes place between you and yourself. So what is it? What is it? What does that conversation look like to you? What is it that you started this project seeking, and how did that journey start between you and yourself? Not as far as the conversation with others is concerned.
Yeah. Well, no. Originally, so when I first heard the idea, so speaking at the early stages, when I first heard the idea, I thought it was interesting. I wasn't really sure. But after doing a little bit of research and, questioning and trying to survey a bunch of people, the feedback was amazing. So it got me really excited.
Were you employed at that time?
Yeah, so
Okay.
I was going to tell you, I am self-employed. I own a little agency for UX design and development, specifically mobile app development. So generally taking risks kind of is in my blood, my DNA. So you know how it is when you have your own business.
Yes.
But with that idea, I actually thought it was really definitely worth being part of or involved in because the idea is really solid. Of course, at times when you're not hitting the certain numbers you really want or so on, you question, okay, so is it moving forward? What's going on? But you know what? With persistency and trying to add new things that will captivate the audience, it keeps you ongoing, and then suddenly you will be noticed and people will hear some positive reinforcements or positive feedback. It'll keep us going, and then it's normal to question yourself throughout the journey, but if you really believe in the idea, it's a little easier to stick to it. The harder part is to be able to stay committed to do all the work and work hard along with all the other stuff going on, especially if you're not full-time on something. Yeah. So I generally feel that's every entrepreneur's struggle when you're trying to start a startup and, you're working with it, but there's so much other stuff going on. So that's times, and when you lose a little bit of the momentum, you start questioning a little bit, okay, so is this moving forward, my time and efforts, etc. But then you come and think of the idea, and then you share it with people, and they're like, oh my God, that's really good. I love the idea. And then it keeps you going. So again, naturally, it's normal to self-doubt, but when you believe in the idea, it's easier to move forward. And I think Scott can add to this a little bit too.
Sure thing. And I think it's because the experience itself is very universal. Just like you were talking about, it's very common between people who are starting something new to have these experiences. It's interesting to see how each and every single one of us deals with it, because you're offering, through your journey and through your lessons, you're offering tools for others who are on a similar path to then be inspired by your story and then also implement some of the things you've learned along the way. So perhaps, Scott, you can enhance on that point and tell us maybe what's worked for you to keep that momentum going.
Well, it's really just giving up other things in your life, right? It's a huge time commitment. I've spent myself the last couple of weekends working at dog festivals, trying to simply get the word out. Your friends are off and your family's off doing other things, cottages or whatever it might be, and you're out there working or grinding. I've spent multiple long weekends doing that. Late nights working, taking vacation days off my regular job to get applications done, things like that. So it's a lot. Yeah, you have to give up that, and of course, you can't ignore the financial aspect of everything as well. It's not necessarily a cheap industry to be in, or venture to take on. And luckily with Salma on board, it's helped us significantly lower the costs in doing something like this. But that can become a challenge as well, because it's almost a catch-22 in that you need a certain amount of users to be able to generate revenue, to get the investors, but you need the money from the investors to get the users to generate the revenue, right?
The chicken or the egg dilemma,
Yeah, I mean, I kind of almost equate it to, it's like graduating with a great degree, but with no experience, right?
Yes.
Well, we're almost the other way around. We've got the experience, but no degree. So it's like trying to find your first job, right?
It's a good analogy.
You just have to be persistent in that, and finally somebody will, see the value and give you that chance, and then it goes from there.
Great. So one of the things I read a lot about is purpose behind everything we do. So a lot of companies know what they're doing, they know how they're doing it, but companies that set themselves apart ultimately dig even deeper, and they have the why behind why they do what they do. So I'm interested in why, what's your why, Scott and Salma? And I'm interested in that because ultimately, like you're saying, in times where things get tough, you have to go back to that question and remember why you started to keep going. So what's the why for you?
Well, for me, I mean, the why is, I would say there's more than one why, but tell
us all.
For a lot of people, I mean, the dream is to kind of have, if you have an entrepreneurial mentality, right, it is to be your own boss, is to have your own company, and to grow something, to be able to look back and say, you know what, I did that, right?
Yes.
And if it's bringing value to other people's lives or meaning, that's a great feeling as well. And
sure.
Salma, I'll throw it to you.
I think the why is you're actually, so on a social network, you are making a difference. Mm-hmm. So the market that we have tackled or aim to tackle is a little bit more committed and serious at points in terms of for the dating purposes. So it's really nice to, skip a step by trying to figure out if this person is a player or not. And that does, by no means does that eliminate that. There's still that chance. But I feel like when you get to connect people through our platform, it's a little bit more dedicated. So I feel like you are actually impacting the community in a way, or I'd like to believe that. Of course, aside from having it succeed and actually become something very popular and being able, so Scott and I just don't want to stop here. If we ever do get the investment, we actually want to grow the platform in many ways. Mm-hmm. And this is just our first step to be able to grow the platform. But we have a lot of great ideas that we would love to actually get on board with through Sniffr. So that is definitely another reason.
I was actually gonna eventually ask you about that, your vision and some of the hopes you have for the future of where you see yourself going. So I'm not sure if you'd like to expand on that or share whatever you're able to share at this point in the project.
No, sure. So Scott and I haven't really aligned in our visions. I love the hardware technicality things, and then he has a lot of ideas in terms of merchandise and store and products catered towards dogs that we've noticed. So the thing is with having the web right now is that everything is different and there's nothing that amalgamates sources. So I'll just give you an example. For example, at Facebook or Instagram specifically, you have a lot of influential people, but there is no one platform that'll allow you to be able to connect with them directly unless you know who they are, right? So we're in the same kind of puddle in this situation. So right now, Facebook is trying to build a platform that amalgamates or lists all these, and then you can search for them based on category or what you're looking for, right? We want to be able to do the same thing, but in terms of the dog market. Okay. So we want to be the number one goal that has everything for everything outside of Sniffr. So it's all these external products related to the brand.
That's great. And do you see this in the next, do you have a timeline for when you want to achieve this?
Scott?
Tomorrow. Again,
As soon as possible.
it's one of those things. I mean, you have your vision, right? But until you can fund your vision, you've really got to focus on what's working for you and where you're growing and what you can build and develop your core, get that strong core, and then you branch out, because I think a lot of businesses make the mistake of trying to juggle too many things. They forget what their core value is, their core brand, and then they fall.
Absolutely.
In the end, I mean, we didn't even mention that we've built in like a lost dog alert system that we want to function, which does function similar to an Amber Alert. So, a dog goes missing or gets stolen, you just simply hit a button. It sends out a picture, a description, a location to everybody who's on the app around you. And what problem that solves is that currently people use, mostly Facebook, maybe Twitter or something else, and hope that people share and get it around. Well, we're going to go direct and make sure that if that dog goes missing, we shorten the time into which it's returned to its owner. So aspects like that.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, you can see, we've got the dating aspect of it, but, those things that we've added on there, which opens the door to a lot of other things down the road, is how we plan on taking it from, just simply a dating or somewhat of a novelty niche dating app into more of a must-have, product or business for every responsible dog owner out there. Of course, that opens doors with, rescues, shelters, vets, things like that. Not just merchandising and collecting data of what dog owners and types of dogs are around in a certain area, right? So there's lots there, but Salma kind of alluded to this earlier. We have other things that are built in, and we've actually put them on the side for now to focus on the core business, grow that, and then it's also one of those things that evolves, right? You don't even know necessarily.
Well, you have to keep yourself flexible and adaptable to market demands and also technological advances that we may not even have access to today. So the future is going to look very different than what we can possibly imagine. So keeping yourself flexible along the way is very key, I think, and I know you're doing that. How long has this been? When was the start date or the launch date for Sniffr?
Which version? So we had
the very first one. Let's start with that one.
Interesting life cycle. I mean, as we mentioned, so the first, when we first got together, that was kind of late 2013, or was it late or early 2000? Either way, it was 2013, and we actually spent almost a year, if not a year, developing the original version, which we launched specifically for Apple.
Yeah.
And then we spent the next year or so developing a version for Android, because they're completely different, right? You have to build them completely separately. From there, we added some things, we played around, we got a lot of feedback from users, and then there was a change in ownership. Of course, Salma got brought on board as a founder here, and it got to a point where we were looking at everything we had done. We were looking at everything we wanted to do, and we kind of hit a point where we had no choice but to actually break everything down, completely get rid of the original version and rebuild it. Yes. And we launched, so the current version is realistically only about a year old.
Okay.
And in doing that, unfortunately, we had to lose all of our user base. Originally, we got some of those people back through emails and reaching out and stuff like that. But it really is, some people ask, how old is it? Well, yeah, the idea started in 2013, but I really think of what we're doing now, it's really only been about a year.
Okay. And I guess what you're doing now is more in alignment where you want it to go. Otherwise, you wouldn't have done something that drastic.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Makes
from the
sense.
technical side, I mean, that's Salma's department.
Makes sense. Sure. I was actually going to ask you about some of the, I don't want to call them failures, but obstacles in the lessons that you've been able to extract. And what you just mentioned is a huge one of them. It's really not easy for any founder or any owner of any type of idea or service to actually pause and reflect and decide to dismantle the whole thing and start all over again. That in itself is a journey that's really inspiring, because something like Airbnb, they actually went bankrupt twice before they became what they are today. And there's a huge misconception out there about overnight successes or people who seem to just, come out of nowhere. But people forget all these years that led you to where you are. And what you're just talking about is that journey. It's that hustle. It's that perseverance. And this is really what's highlighted in your journey so far. And I'm sure you're going to have amazing things to share with so many at one point because of these things.
Hope so.
Yeah, I hope so.
No, for sure. So aside from that major milestone where you had to rebrand and dismantle things and start over, are there any lessons that you'd like to share along the way that you think might be helpful for somebody on a similar journey or just in life in general?
How much time do you have?
I know, this is such an interesting question because it's like I'd love to share your top ones, whatever comes to mind.
Well, I'm going to speak from the technical end.
Sure.
It's very natural to have little, pivots in your plan due to technical reasons. So it's normal to finish each iteration or milestone and then find a little bug when you're trying to integrate them together, to have planned for something and then along the way you realize, no, there's more to it, and then you have to add on to it. Mm-hmm. So first thing is, from the technical perspective, you have to be very, very patient, and you have to do rigorous planning about how the direction you want it to take, essentially how, if it expands, you would allow for it to expand technically, right? Cater it to a language or a framework that, in terms of the backend, as you upgrade, as you change it, as you do whatever, it'll allow it and it'll give you that room. So that if it's done very, very well, I think it's inevitable to really not or have any bugs during your road or your journey, but it can shorten the distance a little bit. That's one thing. So from the development perspective, just, keep going at it. It happens.
So I have a follow-up question on that, actually, that can apply for more than just the development stages. It can apply for other areas in life. There should be a fine balance between the amount of research and like the analytical part, and then the part where you just test and learn and start doing things. So how do you know when to start with something and you've had enough planning and strategies and just start in the action phase?
So if you talk to any product manager or even project manager, there's two approaches for something like this. So you can decide to launch with these certain features and then add these features later on. Okay. Because you can't invest your whole time planning, things happen along the road. So for example, you think, okay, this is a solid idea. And then as you're like 75% throughout your journey, you realize that you have a main competitor and like you're competing directly against each other and you don't have something that'll make you stand out against them. So you're going to have to make some changes, right? So things like that do occur during, like there's so many ideas and there's so many duplicate ideas, right? So if you look at Uber, there's Lyft. Even in the Middle East, you have Careem, right? So it's just very common. You have Airbnb, but here in Silicon Valley, you have similar startups as to Airbnb, but catered for maybe higher end places or a little bit more long term, etc. So it's very common to have one idea but multiple projects of the same thing.
Do you have competitors right now?
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, what is it?
Do you have competitors? Like directly, aside from the ones that dating apps in general, but directly cater to a niche yours?
There has been a lot more dog cater products. We actually have had people try to steal our momentum or our where we've been featured and claim it theirs.
Wow.
So that does exist. So these are little obstacles that you cannot eliminate experiencing during your journey. it's very common everywhere with any type of startup. Maybe a little bit different in the maybe biotech, but even in the medical, you'll have, one thing and multiples of it, and then people will just test which one they like the best and works for them the best, right? Mm. So that's another thing. Like, it's just all about being able to keep going and execute quickly and try to come up with new ideas and so on.
Do you feel like there's an advantage for the first market, like the people who enter the market first? Is there advantages to that?
It's really who does it best.
What's that? What did you say, Scott?
It's really who does it best, right?
So I was going to say that.
As frustrating as it is to have people copy you, it's also motivating because it reminds you that, you know what, you're onto something.
Yeah.
Right? If people are doing the same thing you're doing, then there's something there.
Yeah.
Now you just figure out, okay, what is that?
They just give you more confidence.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, I can see that.
So if you're competitive like we are, then it motivates you to kind of do better, right? So, it doesn't hurt to have that person racing against you because inevitably it'll push you forward.
Okay. Has there been any surprises along the way that you never expected? Whether they're pleasant and happy surprises or not, anything you'd like to share on that?
My co-founder moved to San Francisco.
In Silicon Valley, particularly.
It's not necessarily a bad thing, but it was a surprise. That's for sure. Other companies popping up. I think actually from a surprise standpoint, and I don't know if you can call this a surprise, but just to go back on your last question, like advice to give other people. Now that we've been doing this for a while, I mean, I always have people coming up to me saying, "Oh, you're in the app space. Well, I've got this great idea for an app. I want to do this. I want to do that." And the one thing that I've learned through this, and I think we've learned, is that you can build whatever. You can build an app. You can build any type of app. But in the end, if you're not ready to work on the business and build the business, then a great idea will never get noticed, right? Yes. So I think that to me, one of the biggest surprises was, I always knew that there'd be a huge component to building, but how big that component really is and how much work it really is. And I think a lot of people don't think about that. They just think the idea, I'm going to build this and then it's out there, right? And especially over the years since we first started, Salma has a better idea than I do of how many more apps there are out there now than there were in 2013, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's just exponentially grown, yes.
Yeah. So, So
it rings true that it's 1% idea and 99% execution, essentially, is what you're saying.
Yeah. Not only that,
there's luck involved too, I'm sure, but yeah.
But also now, like a lot of the investors would say, is it a native app or is it a web-based app? Because there's been so many apps out there, and not only that, if your app is on Apple and you have in-app purchases or any type of purchases that's done through the app, that Apple will take 30% of it. Mm-hmm. So a lot of time investors are not even willing to consider, depending on of course the market and the field, etc. But they're not willing to consider investing in a native app because of that factor.
Oh wow, okay.
So that's to the extent of
that's another challenge.
Yeah. So that is something. It's grown like significantly.
So obviously you have to keep yourself on top of things, especially that you're balancing all this work that you're doing, which is a lot of it, with everything else that's going in your life. So your full-time jobs, your families, your health, all that stuff that everybody has to juggle. So are there certain habits or specific things that you've put in place to stay on top of things, whether it's morning routines, whether it's time management skills, anything from that angle that you can share with us that worked for you?
So personally for me, I'm an early bird.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna tell you, my first thing is that cup of coffee, and then a second cup of coffee once I get on my desk, and the first couple of hours, so from 7:30 a.m. to like maybe 1 p.m. I find that morning routines or just starting early in the morning, your brain is fresh and you can accomplish so much more. From 1 onwards, I feel like I just shut down a little bit or slowly, and then I'm not as efficient in my work. So that's
Sure.
one thing that I can personally recommend. And then I am a mother of 2 boys, so actually hitting the
Wow.
gym is a challenge. So I go kickboxing on weekends, and
Okay.
honestly, I think having minimum twice a week a high intensity workout is so essential,
Absolutely.
because it just refreshes you after. So being able to fit any type of like exercise or so a lot of people, like my husband, is into meditation or meditating and so on, so fitting it into your routine,
Hmm.
and having a set schedule or being a little bit organized, I think that helps a lot personally.
Absolutely. For sure.
Yeah.
There's so many
And then
scientific research to support morning habits.
I absolutely. And then from the entrepreneurial side, so actually being on top of like the technological advancements, startups out there, connecting with people of similar minds is also very stimulating and motivating. So that's something I don't know if a lot of people are aware of. So if you surround yourself in such a positive environment, you will thrive. And if you surround yourself in a very negative or stagnant environment, you'll stand still, or So the environment and the people that you surround yourselves by are so important.
For sure.
So yeah, so that is something else, because sometimes you'll be so tired and exhausted, and then you'll have this amazing conversation with this extremely intelligent person, and you'll walk out with like so many ideas, and
Yes.
just things are popping in your head, and
And you're
so
stimulated
refreshed. And
again.
yeah,
Yes.
so honestly, these are the things that kind of work out for me. And then Scott, do you have any other tips?
Naps. I love naps. Refresh yourself, and it helps you stay up late too. So I also love that. No,
That's
and you know
awesome.
what? It's trying to limit and limiting other distractions, right? It's so easy to get distracted by your phone or other apps, right? Games, Facebook, things like that. Television.
Yeah, that'd be shows for me.
Netflix,
Yeah,
of course.
Yeah.
Huge.
right? Like you have to consciously monitor how much time you're spending on those other things, because every hour you spend on that, that's an hour you're not spending working, right? And
Yes.
at times, I mean, you might feel guilty by doing it too much, but it might be needed, but you really do have to keep in mind how much time you're spending on other things.
Sure. And how do you guys celebrate success along the way?
Relief. Why? Um, uh,
Because I
it's
think it's
hard
important,
because
like
we're
especially
pretty
when
far apart.
what's that?
High fives aren't exactly, possible.
But due to our, geographical locations, different geographical locations, it's kind of a little hard, but we do share the excitement over our call.
Amazing.
And then once there's a success, it actually encourages you to plan for the next steps.
Yeah, I was
Absolutely.
just gonna say that actually how we celebrate is getting energized and going what's next, and actually probably working harder.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people fall into that trap when they're high achievers. They forget to celebrate the milestones along the way, and they just undermine the little things and how much these things can ultimately make a big difference. So I think it's important to just recognize yourself as you go, and even if it's just treating yourself for whatever it is, just that also helps you with the momentum, and not to get too comfortable that you achieved this milestone, but also to look forward with that vision.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
in taking those milestones, and I mean, as selfish as it almost seems, but like sharing them, with friends and family, either through social media or just you get a lot of positive feedback from that.
Sure.
You really find out who's rooting for you, and people talk about it, and that's a great feeling. That said, it goes the other way when you haven't had a milestone in a while, and everyone's like, "Oh,
Yeah.
so how's it going?"
Yeah.
I just, let's, it's going. Next topic. So, yeah, it's a lot of ups and downs for sure.
So what I heard from both of you is that there's a lot of balance that has to take place between the social support that you get to keep you going, but also the internal belief and hard work and ethics and everything else that comes from you as a person involved in this project. So balancing the inside internal and external factors ultimately gives you the recipe for what you need to keep going. And that's great to know, and it's great to identify and reflect on for those listening as well who are on similar paths. So would any of you have anything else to add? Because I know I want to be mindful of your time, and I know that you have so much work to do, so I do want to be mindful of that. But I really want to acknowledge you both, because anybody who's taking any form of risk is living their truth and trying to be in more in alignment with who they are and bringing that version of yourself to the world. So I really want to acknowledge you both, because it's brave and it takes a lot of courage to take risks and to put yourself out there in whichever platform you're doing. So you really both deserve a big pat on the back, and I cannot wait to hear your success stories, maybe on Forbes 500 one day, or Fortune 500 I meant. I was gonna say Forbes magazine, and then I was gonna say Fortune 500, and I combined the both. So why not? Both are really great platforms for you eventually.
Well, we hope that we're able to share that or something.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us.
Oh, it's absolutely a pleasure. Like conversations like that get me going. This is my ultimate platform where I connect with people like yourself, because I believe in that too. Like you said, Salma, connecting with those that can energize you and giving it back to the community in whichever way you can. That's ultimately what the world is for. So I'm really excited to have connected with you both. Any last words from you, Scott?
No, again, I want to thank you as well. This is great, and even things like this, help to keep that motivation going, and having people like you reach out to us and saying that you're inspired. So thank you for that.
For sure. Thanks a lot. Any Selma, sorry, I didn't get a chance to hear yours.
No, thank you. I was going to say the same thing. Thank you for taking some time to speak with us, to share about our startup with the world, and to just keep us going.
I guess we should
I'll share this with
that,
you. Sorry, you were saying something?
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, I guess we should mention how to find us.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Our website, www.sniffr.ca.
I'll be putting this in my show notes as well.
I'm sorry?
I'll be putting this in my show notes so the listeners can link you up with that.
Okay, and of course, the app is available both on Apple and Android, free on both stores. So.
Now, all I have to do is get myself a dog. Go
on and meet somebody that has one. Hey,
yeah.
Actually, you don't necessarily have to own a dog. Maybe you're a dog lover.
Oh, I'm totally a dog lover. It's just the lifestyle I have doesn't allow me. It'd be selfish of me to have a dog right now, but it's definitely something I look forward to in the future.
Okay,
yeah, it's funny.
that's amazing.
People ask us all the time, well, can I go on it if I don't have a dog?
Yeah.
Well, why not? I mean, you might have some explaining to do, but
But we do say it's for dog lovers.
For dog lovers, absolutely. Yeah. Well, they say that if you want to be remembered after you pass on, you either have to write something worth reading or do something worth writing about. And you guys are certainly doing that. So thank you again for connecting. And I'll put all your information in the show notes so people can find you and find your app as well. So that was it, folks. I hope you enjoyed this episode and take away some of the stuff that you can start applying in your own life. Regardless whether you're entrepreneurs or not, there's always things we can learn from one another and reflect on things that we hear from other people's journeys. So I do look forward to hearing your feedback to see what stood out for you in this episode and how you can implement it in your life moving forward. So if you have anybody that you'd like me to interview in future episodes, please feel free to reach out to me. And until then, I look forward to hearing and sharing future episodes with you where we can learn, grow, and most importantly, get real together. Take care, everybody.